Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're listening to this show. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, British by birth, American by choice, and proud to be bringing episode 293 to you. Of course, a lot happened in the last week, and some of the topics that I wanted to handle, I've pushed to one side, and let's talk about some of the things that really happened. First of all, I do want to say a very heartfelt welcome to Rex, who's in the chat room. We talked about Rex and his loss last week, and I'm so happy that he is able to join us tonight. I think it's difficult to find any more words than was said last week. I got a very nice email from him expressing his thanks for what I did last week, and I wrote back to him. It's always difficult to know when something like that intrudes on private space and private grief, but I did want to do something to honor a great lady, so I was very honored that he agreed with me that it was a good thing to do. So tonight's show is coming to you from the Patrick Come Lately main studio in one of the states that has given King Barry the finger and refused to take any of the so-called Syrian refugees. Of course, there are all sorts of discussion whether the states can do this, as there is a federal law about refugees being distributed around the country. And I'll come back to some of that constitutionality. However, I've also seen that some commentators seem to find that a preponderance of the so-called refugees are being sent to red states, ones with Republican governors. Now, I haven't been able to confirm the veracity of this assertion, so we'll leave it to one side, just keep it at the back of our mind. And to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me to find out at a later date that this was indeed true. Isn't it sad that there is so little trust in the supposed leader of our country? And so I'm going to start tonight by asking, what exactly is his end game? Is it a short-term goal or a long-term goal? Is it just future voters or something more sinister? If I put my tinfoil hat on, could King Barry deliberately be introducing violent elements into the US? Just before the elections, with the hope that enough violence breaks out and the people don't mind martial law being declared and the elections being postponed, so that he can have the third term of which he obviously dreams. Or is that too much of a conspiracy theory? And by the way, as an aside here, if you're listening to this live and not in the chat room, jump in and let me know what you think about these, what I'm saying here. Some of it's a little controversial, I understand. Some of it's a bit conspiracy theory. But do you agree or not agree? Use the chat room. Speech button is in the the Spreaker box that you use to listen to the show. Maybe we should believe the regime that claims everybody coming here will be thoroughly vetted. Of course, then the question is, how are they going to be vetted with what information? They're coming out of a war zone, and there's virtually no documentation about these people. So how do you vet them? And in actual fact, one of the top DHS people has already spoken out about their inability to vet the people. So, again, do we believe the regime when they say they're being thoroughly vetted? Or do we believe someone high up in the DHS hierarchy that says we can't do that? At the end of the line, the guy from the DHS could be lying. But as far as we know, he hasn't lied before. Whereas the regime, it seems like telling the truth is something that they find impossible to do. So if they're not vetting people, and they know they're not vetting people, why are they bringing them in? Very, very strange. And talking about this vetting, given that at least one of the Paris barbarians was found to be someone who smuggled himself into Europe under the guise of being a Syrian refugee, but using a false Syrian passport, it turns out, and also a top Al-Qaeda leader was captured on a boat full of refugees approaching the Italian coast a few weeks ago. Once again, that raises the question, even if they are doing vetting, can we trust that vetting? And another thing that seems very strange to me, the regime keeps saying that almost all the proposed refugees are mothers, children, and grandmothers, and we can't refuse them entry. Oh, so sad. But are they lying again? Because all the videos that we see of the refugee stream into Europe, look, large numbers of young men, 20 to 35, with good clothes, reasonably well kempt. Sorry, that's an old English word for being well looked after, and healthy, and not that many women, children, and older people. So are all these young men going to be left in Europe and we get the women and children and older people? So we get all the welfare cases and that we have to pay for? I've already seen an estimate by one think tank that says the multi-year cost of each 10,000 refugees is $6.5 billion. So let's just spend another $6.5 billion. I mean, we're only $18 trillion in debt and about, 120 trillion in unfunded liabilities. So what's $6.5 billion on that? And that's only for 10,000. What is it? We hear numbers now that they want to bring in 120,000, 150,000, 250,000. So 250,000, what are we talking there? I mean, we're talking about another $1 trillion over a number of years. Can you believe it? But to go back to my question, the videos we see in Europe, over 75% of the people coming out of the Middle East there are young and healthy. So why are these military-age people fleeing the war zone? Wouldn't you want to stand your ground, defend your families, and defend where you live? And then again, if it really becomes so bad and you do have to run, don't you take what is important? And what is more important than your family? Where are their families? Why are these men running away and leaving their families behind? As I said before, this stream appears to be about 75% these military-age cowards, because that's what it seems that they are. They're running away from fighting. And I guess because they're Muslims, it's the Muslim mentality that says wives and children are of low value, leave them behind. They're probably being told there'll be plenty of kafir women in Europe for their men needs. So, if the regime is lying about the demographics of the refugees, if we do have to take refugees, well, first of all, do we want the welfare cases? Do we want the women, the children, and the old people? But if we wanted to ensure the safety of America and not bring in these military-age people, many of whom are likely to be Daesh thugs, perhaps Congress could pass a law that will restrict immediate settlement to women, children, and older people, say over 50 or 55. But even if we tried that, you could bet your bottom dollar that Dingy Harry would filibuster it. And even if he doesn't, Khalif Hussein would almost certainly veto the bill. After all, officially it's his last year in office. Well, just over a year, but close enough. So he can do what he likes without worrying about the next election. And maybe, to go back to my tin foil hat level story earlier, maybe he can do so without worrying about any election. So that brings me back to the big question. This is all going on. This is all so strange. King Barry is doubling down. He just had a very contentious presser in Turkey, and people from all walks, including European journalists, many of whom are probably more left-wing than most of our New York slimes and other lamestream media people, and they're all trying to understand why he's insisting on bringing these Muslim refugees in. And he just doubles down. Oh, and by the way, there does seem to be a religious slant on the acceptance of the refugees. Glenn Beck has been supporting a group that's been trying to bring Christian refugees from the Middle East into the USA. Now, you'd think Christians who are being crucified and burnt and beheaded, etc., 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 they would be obviously refugees, but they've been experiencing all sorts of pushback, denials, and delays from the Department of State. Yes, from the regime. Why would that be? So Muslims, yes. Christians, no. Isn't that against the First Amendment? Now, I'm sure the regressives in the regime find a way to spin it so that these decisions are not around religion, but some other criteria. But then again, just in the same way, Lois Lerner was never targeting conservative or Tea Party groups. And Hilaya never had any classified emails on her weekly protected private server. So why are we allowing these Muslims in, and why does Mr. Sutoro insist on continuing these imports when it seems that it is likely to bring dangerous elements into the heart of America? And he's just making it easy for them, because don't forget, with our open borders and a little bit of money, they can get in anyway. So after the carnage in Paris, you would think that it would be wise to slow things down and take stock of the process, ensure that it is indeed safe. But instead, he insists on steaming full speed ahead. Why? Well, let's look at that more closely after the break coming up. I will be back after these messages.
You can lose 10, 20, 30 pounds or more with Maximum Slim's first ever Rapid weight loss guarantee. Today, you get Maximum Slim, an advanced fat and carb blocker, absolutely risk-free. The all-natural ingredients in Maximum Slim are a powerful weight loss combination. The Maximum Slim formula turns your body into a fat-burning furnace that supercharges your weight loss. Advanced fat and carb blocker stops the breakdown of sugar so your body doesn't store it as fat. Today, you'll get both of these products absolutely risk-free with no obligation. Only pay shipping. There are no expensive meal plans or exhausting DVDs. Just take Maximum Slim twice a day. It's fast, simple, and now it's guaranteed. Look, you can start losing weight today or not. Go back to your high school days and wear your favorite jeans again. Guaranteed. Call now and get both weight loss formulas free. Call 800-451-0228. 800-451-0228. That's 800-451-0228.
Doc, you gotta give it to me straight.
All right.
'Cause I'm dying here. I mean, take a look at this letter from the IRS.
Oh, my.
This is killing me, Doc. I tell you, it's killing me.
Cheer up, my friend.
Huh?
The tax doctor is here. My diagnosis tells me that you're going to be just fine.
Really?
The tax doctor will not rest until we find you the best possible tax settlement.
Really, Doc?
Guaranteed.
If the IRS claims you owe them $10,000 or more in business or personal back taxes, call a tax doctor right now. We could save you up to 75% if you qualify. Guaranteed or you pay nothing. Call right now for free details.
800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. That's 800-917-8546.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And thanks for sticking with me through that break. We were talking about why King Barry insists on pushing ahead with bringing these so-called Syrian refugees, because we don't even know whether they're Syrian, where they come from. And don't forget, a lot of Daesh recruits come from Syria and Iraq, but a lot from Syria. So they are true Syrians. How are we going to vet them? How are we going to know that they're really, that they're really who they say they are, and that they can be trusted, and that they're not Daesh plants? And by the way, I'm using the term Daesh because I have decided I am not going to use the term ISIS as used by many in the lamestream media, and or ISIL, which is even worse, right? Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. I've talked about the fact that it really ticks me off that the regime insists on using that, because in essence, remember, the Levant covers Israel as well, so they're giving legitimacy to that group taking over Israel. And again, tinfoil hat, but I think it's deliberate. But Daesh is a term. Let me just take a kind of a short sidestep again here. Is a term that comes from the initials or an acronym from the Arabic name of what we call ISIS. If you see that in Arabic, it has those letters. But the reason that people in Europe have started using it, you may have noticed President Hollande used it in his fiery speech after the Paris carnage. And I believe, actually, King Barry has used it once or twice as well. And one of the interesting things about it is that ISIS actually hates it, because the word Daesh, while it's an acronym, it also equates to things which in Arabic mean a force that tramples under, and very negative kind of thing. And the rumors are that if ISIS catches someone saying it in their territory, that they have threatened to cut out their tongues because they don't like this term. So, because they don't like it, I'm going to use it. So, if you hear me using that, it is what you might think of as ISIS, but it's Daesh. That's the name to give it. Anyway, so let's go back to King Barry. Why is he insisting on steaming full speed ahead with introducing these refugees into America? Is he just plain stupid? Does he see that actually the day after the carnage in Paris, that actually doubling down and saying, yeah, we're going to continue to bring them in, is just, if he were coming up for another election, that would have been political suicide, but he doesn't seem to care. So is he stupid? Or is he just arrogant and annoyed that his actions are being questioned? Maybe, could he really be that arrogant that he really believes what he's doing is safe for American citizens? Arrogant and naive? Or maybe he just doesn't give a damn about America, which I think is probably closer to the truth. And he's just answering the call of his benefactor and puppet master, George Open Borders Soros, yes? Spooky dude, who sees America as an impediment to a new world order. Or is it even worse than that? As mentioned earlier, like I said, maybe tinfoil hat stuff, but is everything done with an even more sinister background? One that we might discover shortly, but likely before the elections. Right now, there are just so many dots to connect. They're everywhere. It's difficult to determine the pattern. And I think that's what they're trying to do. I think they're trying to prevent us from determining the pattern, whoever's doing this. Soros, spooky dude, Obama himself deliberately, the regressives, who knows? Muslim Brotherhood. Basically, is it all part of a grand, sinister, regressive design? It's food for thought, folks. Let me know what you think in the chat room if you're listening live. Or otherwise, email me at stefan@patrickcomelately.us. Or, alternatively, you can also send me a message by going to the website, www.patrickcomelately.us, and clicking on the contact link and sending me a message that way. Just let me know what you think about all these different things. Why is this happening? I would love to hear from you. So we have a bit of time till the bottom of the hour. So I want to go back to the details of the constitutional issues around the refugee settlement. One of the things that I like to think of myself as is supporting the Constitution. I think of myself as a constitutionalist before I'm a Republican or a conservative or a Democrat even. I think of myself as a constitutionalist, and I have a lot of time for any politician, irrespective of the color of their stripes, if they follow the Constitution. And I have to be honest, most of the regressives, most of the liberals, most of the Democrats in Congress at the moment, 99% don't follow the Constitution. They twist it to their own agenda. But on the other side of the aisle, there's a bunch of people there as well who don't follow the Constitution. I don't like them either, and regular listeners will know that. So, let's go back to the constitutional issues about the refugee settlement. To date, apparently over 26 state governors now have in some form or other, rejected the settlement of Syrian refugees. Some have just said, we don't want them. Others have said, the feds have to stop bringing them in, and we don't want them either, but we have to stop it at the federal level. Now, that last argument is the strongest because there is a question over whether or not a state can override an overreaching, Obama-controlled, power-hungry U.S. government. According to an American university law professor, Stephen Vladek, the states may have a difficult time preempting the federal authority to do as it pleases, at least regarding the refugee influx. What they can do is make it very difficult for the US government to carry that out in their state. The professor stated that legally states have no authority to do anything because the question of who should be allowed into the country is one that the Constitution commits to the federal government. But, as was mentioned before, without the state's participation, the federal government would have a much more arduous task. So a state can't say that it is legally objecting, but it can refuse to cooperate, which makes things much more difficult. And why can't it say that it's legally objecting? Because Congress, in its wisdom, in the 80s, created an act which basically says the feds can bring refugees in and has to distribute them across the country. I believe there's some wording like that. Now, so if the state challenges the authority to forcibly resettle refugees into a state which has refused them, now we get into politically interesting terrain. The professor says that this could actually be politically damaging, to say the least, not even to mention the possibility of fomenting a constitutional crisis if King Barry does overrule the states and put people in anyway. He says if the federal government were to override a state, then, and do that without the state's consent, the state could sue in federal court over the jurisdiction and at least force a possible injunction which could suspend the federal government's efforts to forcibly resettle refugees, at least within the complainant state or states. Remember, we're talking about 26 states that have already said they don't want it. So that would leave a very small group over. Now, there are about 10 states who've said, yes, we'll take them. I think Governor Malloy in Maryland, California was one. They're crazy, but, you know, California is the state of fruit and nuts, so I think that's normal. But the other 26 would say no, and that could make it very difficult for the Obama regime. Right now, they've got a problem because they've been forced to suspend the DREAM Act impetus, right? The executive order, because they have been called to the carpet by a federal appeals court over trying to do that without going through Congress. So the federal judge has declared an injunction which says they have to stop it. Now, apparently they're trying to do things anyway, but he said it is an unlawful executive order. Now, the Department of Injustice is supposedly going to be taking that to the U.S. Supreme Court, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But anyway, I see it's time for another short break. Like I said, have to pay the rent here, pay the costs of running this show. So if you need any of these services, be sure to use the 800 numbers in the commercials.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
Every day, millions of Americans grow more concerned about the future of our great nation. The truth is, over the last century, a small but powerful collectivist movement known as progressivism has debased our politics, our culture, and our currency. We're just a small step from falling into 1,000 years of darkness, as Ronald Reagan warned. Friend, this is Pat Boone with an important free offer on a hot new book called The Great Withdrawal by Craig Smith and Lowell Ponte. This new book explains how we, the people, can end this fatal detour into big government and get back on the path of faith and freedom charted by our founders. Call now for a free copy of the hot new book called The Great Withdrawal.
Call now for your free copy. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. That's 800-978-3901.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS that you can't pay? Call now for immediate help. At the Tax Relief Line, we help people just like you. If you take on the IRS alone, you could be facing levies, liens, even wage garnishments, personal or business tax issues. If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS, call now and see if you can pay less. They can freeze your bank accounts, even garnish your wages. Call the Tax Relief Line now for immediate help. Our expert team of tax professionals will negotiate your tax problem and deal with the IRS for you. If the IRS is threatening you with levies, wage garnishments, or seizing your assets, call now and see if you can pay the IRS less.
888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043.
This is Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio, keeping the spirit of America alive, a proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network.
Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically.
Oops, folks, sorry, I saw that the mute button was on there, so you missed my little intro to that piece from Ronaldus Magnus, but basically what I was saying, I wanted to mention about appeasement. I said that maybe if we take the least nefarious kind of approach to what Barry is doing, that maybe he's just trying to appease the people in the Middle East, and that's why he's doing it. But of course, we know appeasement is not the way to go. And what I did say was, and I know that because with my British European background, having had family in the occupied territories during the war, and let's think about Chamberlain and his move to appeasement with the Munich Agreement that wasn't worth the paper that it was written on. In the end, appeasement never works. But whatever. And yes, Rex, thank you. It would be nice to have an engineer to watch me for this, but kind of difficult to do right now because of moving around. I'm in different places depending on the project. So once I retire and maybe either stop doing it and then I don't need it, or go to a more regular show and in a regular place, maybe I can get someone to help out with that sort of thing. So, okay, let's go back. We were talking about the constitutional issues about the refugee settlement, right? And I'd mentioned that they might get into a suit from the states, and Rex mentioned that now it's actually 31 states that have actually refused to take refugees. That would be a very interesting court case because it would have to go up to the Supreme Court probably as well. And in the meanwhile, they could probably get an injunction like they got for the DREAM Act executive order to stop it. Now, again, a lot of the time, Barry doesn't even follow those injunctions, so whatever. And, of course, on top of that, there's also Congress. Apparently, members of Congress have already introduced a bill on the House floor to end the resettlement of refugees to the U.S. Now, the official role of either limiting or allowing immigration into the U.S. doesn't actually belong to the executive branch. What their responsibility is to decide who comes, but the actual numbers rests with legislators in Congress. And of course, if Daesh had smuggled people in and they do attack, as Rex seems to expect, maybe around the New Year or Christmas or whatever, then I think you could really say that all bets would be off, and the Obama and the regressives' agenda to flood the U.S. with these foreign nationals, that would be very easy to stop because basically the whole country would be crying for it. Of course, the Congress could even stop it today because they hold the power of the federal purse in disallowing funding of refugee settlement, but the Republicans in Congress aren't clever enough at the moment to be aggressive enough and to find ways to limit the spending initiatives that way, because they always get tied into other things, and then Obama and the regressives can claim, oh, you're shutting the government down, when it's actually them that is actually shutting it down. But so, they take the path of least resistance. I'm hoping with Paul Ryan as Speaker, maybe we get a little bit better, but I'm not holding my breath on that. So we'll see. And so 31 have said no. There's still, as I said, a number of Democrat-dominated states like California and others that have been far more receptive. Send them there. Let them have the problems. And by the way, those 31 states are not just all red states. I know that there are a number of states which have Democrat governors who don't want them either. And one commentator said something that I think is very important to remember. The thing to remember here might be just that just as the political elections have consequences, political consequences always devolve down into elections. So think about that, Democrats. But anyway, so Paris. I'd like to get started on and talk a little bit about Paris. But before we do that, I want to remind everybody about something very important. It could happen here. And if you haven't already read it, let me highly recommend a book about such a scenario. The Day of Wrath. I think I've mentioned this on the show maybe 12 months ago. I read it and I was very impressed by it at the time. It's a novella. It's a short novel. And it's by a best-selling author called William R. Forstchen. He's actually best known, I think, probably for his book 1 Second After, which is also a story of how everything goes to pieces in America when we get hit by an EMP attack, EMP, electromagnetic pulse, which is created by atomic bombs that are not exploded on the ground, but are exploded high in the atmosphere. And this electromagnetic pulse destroys all electronics over a wide area. So his book, I think there are 3 atomic bombs go off and basically carpet most of America. All electricity, cars, radios, cell phones, you name it, they all stop working. Millions of people die in the cities because there's not enough food, and marauding bands then roam the countryside looking for food and supplies. A real doomsday scenario. It's the story looked at from some people in the country who kind of set up their little enclave and defend their enclave at a cost. It is not easy to keep the bad guys out. Interesting book. But he also wrote this book, Day of Wrath. And basically, he imagined a horrifying scenario where, in the course of one day, the terrorist group Daesh carried out massacres in schools and on highways across the United States. Sound familiar? Okay, so it was a football stadium. It was a rock concert. It was bars, but very similar to what they did here, with a surprisingly small but well-organized, ruthless force. I think, if I remember the book, about 4 groups. The nightmarish devastation brings America to a state of near paralysis. It shows how fragile our defenses and infrastructure really are. And it's also, of course, there's a heroic side to it, people trying to save lives. But basically, for me, it's a wake-up call for America. And, be prepared because it could happen here. And we don't want all of that panic happening, etc. Okay, folks, time for the last break, and then I will be back just to talk a little bit about Paris. So here we go. And the last commercial will start now.
The offer of a franchise can only be made through delivery of a franchise disclosure document. Imagine yourself being a leader in America's fastest growing demographic category. More than 10,000 people a day turn 65, and a large percentage are going to need a helping hand at home or in choosing the right assisted living community. Always Best Care is looking for people who've excelled at everything they've done, but they're seeking a new challenge. Always Best Care is one of the fastest growing companies in this explosive field. We're looking for 25 new franchisees to keep our booming business growing. We'll back you up with the strongest award-winning marketing program in the industry, and we'll provide the special training and support that's fueled our growth to prepare you for this great opportunity. All that's missing is you. Call Always Best Care toll-free at 1-800-643-7508. That's 1-800-643-7508. For Always Best Care, 1-800-643-7508. Call today.
Are you worried about losing your home to foreclosure? If you've been threatened with foreclosure or received legal papers from your bank, you have approximately 30 days to respond. If you do not respond, you could lose your home. You have rights. Act now to protect your rights. You can stay in your home. Many times you can even modify your loan. The bottom line is you can get past this, but you must act right now. Call National Foreclosure Defense right now at 800-296-3006, 800-296-3006. If you've been served by your bank and you're worried about losing your home to foreclosure, now is the time to fight back and save your home. Time is limited, so call right now. 800-296-3006, 800-296-3006. Call the professionals at National Foreclosure Defense right now. 800-296-3006.
If you're diabetic, this message could change your life. Is your blood sugar out of control even when you do all the right stuff? Are you afraid of diabetic blindness and the risk of amputation, as well as all those other side effects? Well, you should be. Is there anything that could help manage your blood sugar? Nobetes is a natural supplement that may quickly and dramatically lower your blood sugar.
My name is Bob Corder. I've been using Nobetes for about 3.5 to 4 months now. And in the first 3 months, I've actually lowered my blood sugars from 500s down to 139, and then it dropped to 88 to 93.
My name is Kirsten. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and while taking Nobetes, my blood sugar levels dropped from 295 to 115 in just one day.
The FDA hasn't evaluated these statements, and Nobetes isn't intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. But for many, it's helped drop their blood sugar. So if you've been evaluated with high blood sugar, don't delay. Evaluate Nobetes now. Call 800-551-8302 and get your free bottle. Just cover shipping and handling. Call 800-551-8302. That's 800-551-8302.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. Okay, folks, we're into the last segment of the show, and going to talk a little bit about Paris. William Fortune's prediction was a Daesh attack in America, and instead of that, the rampage by bestial cowards happened in Europe, specifically in France. Why France? Well, I think more than any country in Europe, France opened its arms to hundreds of thousands of Muslim immigrants who came there and then felt disenfranchised because they couldn't get jobs. A very big part of that was because they did not assimilate. They live in Muslim suburbs, Muslim ghettos on the edge of Paris, and, no jobs, young people. Because of that disenfranchisement, the pickings are right for the Islamic extremists. They recruit these lost souls and give them a purpose. Unfortunately, a very evil purpose. At the end of the line, these are nothing but thuggish cowards. Cowards because they attack defenseless people, and as soon as anyone arrives who can fight back, and in Paris that's only the SWAT teams, because Paris, like France, like the rest of Europe, has very strict gun rules. But when the SWAT team arrives, who do have weapons, they blow themselves up. Very sad. Very sad. But be warned. Paris Muslim suburbs today, Detroit, Dearborn, Minneapolis, and even many small towns around America tomorrow. Wake up, America. It's time to wake up. Okay, in the last few minutes, just quickly some polls, and I have to apologize to Mary, and I even wrote that in my notes, Mary, even before knowing whether or not you'd be in today's show. But the latest numbers show that Donald Trump has surged ahead of Carson and everybody else. To a certain extent, surprisingly. I didn't think he did that well in the debate, but I think Carson made some mistakes there. I'm just wondering, this poll was probably taken too early for the Paris carnage to have had any major impact on the numbers. But yeah, I may be wrong. Well, anyway, we'll see about that. But I think the surge of Trump against Carson, and like I said, sorry, Mary, I know you're a great Carson supporter, but I think this note that I found on the internet saying that last week's debate and its follow-up has helped define what is one of the key issues of the 2016 GOP presidential race: immigration. And I think with what happened in Paris, that's going to be even more so. Candidates are drawing clear lines on illegal immigration and amnesty. Donald Trump, of course, is taking the strongest stand, while Ben Carson softened his position to include immediate legal status for illegal aliens. That, I believe, is a dangerous standpoint to take. During the debate, when asked how he would deport illegal aliens, Trump referenced the 1950 policies of Ike, which made deportation unpleasant and resulted in mass self-deportation. E-Verify will help with that as well. If you can't get a job, you're going to go home. Meanwhile, Dr. Carson went the other way, says this commentator, calling Trump's policies not pragmatic and adding that illegals should not have to live in the shadows. And he then went further, announcing his support for immediate legal status for illegal aliens in this country and that he would listen to proposals for full citizen amnesty. Well, Mary, I have to apologize, but you know my stand on that. Anything to do with illegal immigration, I feel very strongly. And anybody who talks about amnesty, especially for the illegals with a path to citizenship, I've always said, if we want to allow any in and legalize them, bring them out of the shadow, that should be without ever having the chance for citizenship, because if they want that, they should go back to their country, as Trump says they should, and get in line with everybody else. But anyway, so that's a dangerous one. And again, I apologize to you, Mary, but that's it. Anyway, we'll see. It's still a long time to Iowa, so lots of things can happen, but it's interesting to see. So the latest numbers were 36%, although there was another poll out, I think, a couple of days ago, which had Trump above 40% on a national poll. Ben Carson at, just under 15. Marco Rubio at 11. Ted Cruz at 8. Jeb is down 6, and I think we can write him off. Rand Paul we can write off. John Kasich, Mike Huckabee, and Carly Fiorina, all at between 3 and 2%, and of course everybody else lower than that. And of course we have lost Bobby Jindal as well. So, too bad. One other thing that we can, I think we can get in before the end of the show. One of the things that came up in the CNBC debate, and that it had come up before then, but it was, these very left-wing so-called moderators that brought it up. They were berating Marco Rubio about his voting record now that he's running for, while he's running for president. Of course, what they didn't do was count the missed votes for other people who were senators while running for president. So let's look at these numbers. John Kerry, when he was running for president, missed 90% of the votes. Barack Obama, the senator at the time, missed 80%. Hillary Clinton, as a senator, when she's been running for president, missed 78% of the votes. Joe Biden even missed 68%. So how many percent did Marco Rubio miss? To date, 34%. Just shows you how absolutely hypocritical the lamestream media and the regressives are. Well, I see, folks, we're getting close to the end of the show. I want to say thank you for coming. A special thanks to Rex for being here. I know he's going through difficult times, but as I wrote to him recently, I believe he has the strength to get through them, and he will. So, folks, I see that Yep, the clock is ticking. Please join me next week. And remember, please tell your friends. We need to get these messages out to everybody about what's going on, the hypocrisy, etc., because the elections are coming up and we have to make sure that we get conservatives in, both in the House, Congress, and in the White House. Folks, thanks a lot. Talk to you next week. I will say right now, ta-ta for now. See you next week. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stefan, your Patriot Come Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.